when you take something that is entry level and you electrify it, right off the bat, just taking away some of the vibrations of those less expensive economy power plants does a world of good for a premium feel. Welcome back, I'm Tedward, welcome to Michigan, and welcome to the all-new Chevrolet Equinox EV. I think this may be the value play in the EV world coming up. So let me tell you a little bit about this, because we no longer have a Chevy Bolt, and a lot of people really loved that car, but it had some problems because it only charged at a 55 kilowatt charge speed. This Equinox has a range of over 300 miles, 315 miles. It can charge at 150 kilowatts. So that's going to give you about 70 to 80 miles in about 10 minutes of charging. That's a big deal. And it fits in a smaller size than the current Blazer EV. So it's a little more compact and it might fit into your life just a bit more. But not only that, it's more reasonably priced, because this in 3RS trim costs around $44,000 to $45,000. And then you take off $7.5 grand for the EV tax credit. There is going to be an entry level of this, the 1LT, which should start around $31,000 to $32,000. So if you're looking to get yourself into an EV, this might be the way to do it. So what do we have? This one has front wheel drive and an optional all-wheel drive. If you get the all-wheel drive, you do drop the range from 315 to about 285 miles. Still pretty much above and beyond most of the competition, especially in the price range. So that is great. But what really is impressive is the size of the vehicle. And let's see, we'll unlock this. You get these door handles, which these are not my favorite door handles. And by the way, that's not just some crazy police chase happening. There is an autocross with the Blazer EV PPVs going on. The door handles, look, I like that they put some ingenuity into it. I still always prefer a regular door handle. That's just me. It might not be for everybody. Back here, you've got room for 3 and tons of space. Of course, you know, it's not an all-wheel drive ICE vehicle, so we don't have to worry about any drive shafts. Lots of floor space, heated outboard seats back here, and cup holders, tons and tons of legroom. Like, this is really pretty spacious. Reasonable recline on these seats as well, so you're not going to be sitting in a church pew while you're transferring your people. But here's the thing about these cars is, just because you buy a somewhat inexpensive car doesn't mean you should live in a penalty box. Not all of us are saving all of our pennies to be out there buying the latest and greatest and some exclusive thing that represents our entire personality. Some people just need an efficient, effective, and reliable mode of transportation for reasonable money, and I think this is going to do it. And that's why I think so highly of, say, the Chevy Trax, because the Chevy Trax really does do all the things that this does, except it does it with a 3-cylinder engine and an automatic transmission. But one thing that makes a vehicle like a Chevy Trax start to feel way more premium is you take away that sort of unbalanced 3-cylinder or 4-cylinder vibe. And when you do it with an EV, suddenly you have this incredible package that is smooth, quiet, efficient, and inexpensive. But what really matters is how these things drive. This is the top of the heap as a 3RS, so you're getting a 21-inch wheel. I can't believe we get 21-inch wheels on like a somewhat entry-level small compact SUV now, but it's a 275 section tire all around, which it's got to be, because, you know, you've got batteries, it's an EV, it's going to have a little extra weight, so you do need that for the additional grip. But fortunately, for the sake of your ride comfort, you do get some sidewall. These are 275/40s, so they're not that low profile that they're trying to hit you with style, but it does absorb some of the shock. Let's take a look under this little frunk. I don't think it's actually a frunk, but we'll find out. There is your power plant. So no storage up here. That's going to be powering the front wheels. And yes, you can still get the Equinox in ICE form. You can get an engine with the transmission as a very standard gasoline powered car, but this is a different architecture. So this isn't simply an ICE Equinox that they converted and tried to shove batteries and a motor into. It actually does have a personality and an architecture all its own. But none of this technology matters if it's not fun to drive. So let's jump in, drive the streets of Detroit, some highway, and see what it's like. Up front, we're getting pretty lovely seats. You've got the RS embroidery here. You've got some deviated stitching, and power seats. You have Super Cruise. This is an option that's really great because that's some pretty impressive technology. And if you can get Super Cruise on your entry level or like low level EV as an option, that's such a massive game changer to just making this car feel more premium and extravagant. You have a giant over 17-inch display. I think it's 17.7 inches. And this is going to be really familiar if you've been in Blazer or even the new Silverado EV. This setup is pretty common. And what I like about it is that it feels like a car. Yes, I know a lot of people are still bemoaning the idea that we've gone to screens from analog gauges. However, having these screens does make it's easy to operate everything. We have our heated and cooled seats, but our HVAC controls are still down here. But again, these are integrated like a car. Okay. And I like that as an EV, it still feels like a normal car despite the fact that you have an electric powertrain. We're not trying to do some crazy futuristic thing that makes it more complicated to drive. So we've jumped in. There is no start-stop button in this little guy. So you just put your foot on the brake. Now, all right, I'm just going to say this really quick. I don't have a huge issue with this. I like having the control to turn on and off a vehicle. I'm curious how this plays out in like a family situation where maybe your little kid likes to play in the cars. It's just one step less to get it into drive. And that's all. That's all I'll say about it. I'm sure they've thought this out. I'm sure there's something there, but I just had a neighbor who put an infinity into a tree and he was like 4 years old. So it's just a thought. But anyway, keep that in mind if you have a very exploratory child with the vehicles. Maybe keep these keys far, far away from them. We're greeted with extreme screens. This is really large and seemingly no annoying noises coming out of them. We saw a little bit of that creaking, that plastic creaking from Silverado, and this at a much, much lower price point seems to have that sorted out, which is interesting. This is a little deceiving because the price point of this RS is higher. This is more around $45,000, but remember that's before the $7,500 tax credit. So this is like a steal, and later in 2024, they're gonna come out with a much cheaper 1LT version, and that after tax credit is gonna be in the high 20s. Look at these. These cameras are insane, and it will stop for me. I'm not gonna test it because I'm probably gonna look like a doofus in front of these people, but get our mirror set up, super easy controls. Another thing about this car that I like is that it's a car. I'm not trying to go on some Tesla tirade, but I don't have some center stack that I need to just do everything with. I have physical keys for HVAC controls. We can cool ourselves down a little bit, heated, cooled seats, and I have a normal dashboard in front of me giving me a speedometer and some navigation information. I don't have to take my eyes off the road to come down here. You can go. I'm going to be a nice guy and hopefully you don't get hit by a Dodge Ram. So this is another thing. We're getting used to sort of the integrated Google design of these vehicles. We don't have Apple CarPlay, and I know that could be a deal breaker for so many people, but I have to say, like, you have to give this a little bit of a chance because the screens are really nice. I'm a skeptic as well, so don't take this as like I'm just drinking the GM Kool-Aid, but I think I could get used to this. Unlike Silverado, we do not have pressure-sensitive regen paddles. So this is just a click. Oh. Seating position is really, this is where I'm just starting to get blown away by this entry-level stuff. I mean, I know this is, closer to $50,000, but we're talking about a pretty low-level EV in terms of the competition. And it offers a lot, but it's a comfortable seat. It's low and not like sat up high in the car. Sometimes in these cars where they weren't built initially as electric vehicle architecture, you end up in a situation where they're stacking batteries where they didn't belong. So for example, Genesis electrified cars, I feel like I'm sat way up high. You've got this big cabin, but then really you've got to stack the seat way up so that way you can fit all the stuff that they had to kind of wedge in there. Whereas this, I feel like I'm nice and low in the vehicle. 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds with the front wheel drive versions, and that's plenty. I don't think all of our EVs need to be drag racers. I think it's a fun party trick to get people involved in electric vehicles, but I don't see it as the end-all be-all of the reason we buy them. I don't want to live in a world where everyone has like 800 horsepower. People are so bad at driving.
I hear you.
Could you imagine if every single person on the road owned like a Camaro ZL1? Do you know how dangerous the world would be? If you miss the Bolt, or if your Bolt is getting old in the tooth, or you're just sick of 55 kilowatt charge speeds, this is kind of a Bolt replacement. It feels like Bolt size, and it's more stylish. Bolt, I've heard, is coming back in, I think, 2026.
That is true.
But I don't think you have to wait for Bolt. Just call it an Equinox, and we'll take on the Jeep. Give them the jump. Bad.
There's a bump.
Yeah, we're not going to go through that one because that one looked like it'll eat a wheel. That one's not a test. Oh, just blow through it, little guy.
Yeah.
Oh, man, imagine battling that. Been driving this car for like 10 minutes and I just feel like I am one with it. This is something that we don't appreciate enough about like GM engineers, is they do dial the cars in. And I was in this car with GM President Mark Royce the other day, and I know he spends time in this car because I was fiddling with things. He goes, oh no, just hit this, or oh no, you only need to hit this once to get it to go back. So the top level executives are spending thousands of miles in these vehicles to make sure that they are delivering the experience to their customers that they want to see. So that to me is really special, just to know that like they actually care. They need these cars to sell. They need these to be special. And that's why they take so much pride in like making sure that they're dialed in before they go out. Some ugly Michigan.
That was a big old pothole.
Come on, man.
Like, that handled it great.
This is incredible.
I would like to drive that.
It's damped so well. See, this Corvette, he's going to have to put a nose lift up for that. Hit this one. Yeah, it's absorbing stuff. This is not a crashy, cheap car. My Type R, I'd already, like, probably have to file a claim. That's for sure. As far as creature comforts and noise and, you know, premium feel, I think the best part about this car is the fact that it's not an internal combustion engine, because if it was, they still make the ICE version, and I'm not knocking that. I got to drive it. I'm sure it's fine. This is different architecture, but because it does not have a like sewing machine little 4-cylinder or 3-cylinder, it's not churning away attempting to keep me in a power band. And having this be silent versus having this be some, like, you know, unbalanced small engine is such a premium feeling in a vehicle that might otherwise feel entry level. And sometimes power plants make things feel entry level. I'm looking at you, Porsche, because the 718 came in with its 4-cylinder turbo. Not a bad car, a great car, in fact. But I have to say, when you take that flat 6 out of it and you give it a 4-cylinder, it is less enjoyable, and it's really hard to justify that money for that sound. If I wanted to drive a Subaru, I'd drive a Subaru. So when you take something that is entry level and you electrify it, right off the bat, just taking away some of the vibrations of those less expensive economy power plants does a world of good for a premium feel. Tackling Michigan roads and highways. I'm like intentionally hitting bumps just to know. Like,
it's the Michigan experience, baby.
It's a joy. We'll be good doobies. This has the torque to get around him, but like there's entrances to neighborhoods, so we don't really need to do that. I like how he's cutting the corner. Loves that line. He's getting some curb.
Yeah!
This guy's getting it. What a line. Love to see it.
Jensen Button in the Buick Encore.
Yeah. All right, we're here for a little while, and then we can get into that power a little bit. That's doing the job. I'll just chill here for right now. We'll see if Super Cruise, look at this. Entry level EV, super cruising on the highway, hands-free, baby. This is what I liked about the Bolt on a road trip, because it felt like I'm in like this econo box, but yet it has like some of the most advanced technology in the game. That's how you sell cars. That's how you sell like low-end cars and get a little money on top, because this is a worthy option. It's not messing around. It does what it's gonna do, and in like, I think it's supposed to have 750,000 mapped miles that it's good for in the next like year or so. So this works in a lot of places, but it's easy to use. And honestly, you look kind of like a baller when your car has the green stripe. Green stripe means something.
I always think that Super Cruise does better when it's a smaller vehicle too. It might just be my perception, because a bigger vehicle takes up most of the lane, but the smaller cars, it really keeps it locked.
Let's see if this one does. It does have auto lane change. So that was something that the Bolt that I had back a year ago did not have. So it could not auto lane change. Now I had bad etiquette because I just auto lane changed into faster traffic like a jerk. So don't drive like me, but it can do it. So it was for science. I mean, we're cruising along very comfortably at, you know, over the speed limit. We're doing 80, but we're flowing with traffic. This is how it works in Michigan. Yeah, this is where I want to be. I could do hours. This is smooth. I could do hours in this car. I'm gonna jump off the pedal. This is still under one pedal normal mode, and it didn't just send us through the windshield, which is nice because you want to have that nice smooth interaction with highway traffic. I think sometimes when you have an aggressive tune on these one pedal drivings on the highway, it really throws things off, and it can like cause congestion because you're doing that accordion effect every time you happen to like jump off the throttle. It still lets me coast. It's not over damped, so we're not getting any kind of bumpy hits, where it's not under damped where we're floating over bumps for multiple oscillations. It just kind of takes the bump, it settles, and it goes, and it's not crashy whatsoever. I'm hearing like no NVH through any of the dashboard, which, I mean, frankly, you know, this dashboard, it's got some of that, like, it's got some give. So it's not just super hard plastic like this. It's got a little give. It's almost like a hard foam. Okay, it's unhappy because it can't see my eyes right now. So that's not Super Cruise's fault. That's my fault. I don't think it's used to people touching its dashboard while they're driving. So now we're out of the normal Detroit vibes and we're in Grosse Pointe, which I've always wanted to visit Grosse Pointe because I love Grosse Pointe Blank. So if you're young, that is just a beautiful John Cusack movie. But man, this is ritzy. Holy cow. Sometimes you forget how wild Michigan can be. And the Equinox kind of fits in. I'm not in a penalty box. It's important that if you're buying a car, it represents you. And it's important that if you don't even like cars, you don't have to be driving some like just scummy thing that makes you look like a certain thing, right? You don't want to be driving like the moped of cars. I don't feel like I'm driving a moped. I feel like I'm driving a nice, stylish vehicle, and I could go park in one of these mansions. Now, the advertising always does that, right? I love it when car companies do that. They'll have like their entry-level car parked at like a $12 million estate in Napa Valley, and they'll show like mom and child jumping out of the car, running up into grandma's arms. It's like, wow, grandma's trust fund is pretty sweet. It usually looks a little goofy in those things, but I do think that this car does fit in. Like, I could see this in a driveway with a Corvette or an Escalade or something, and it just wouldn't look like that out of place. So while we're sitting behind this Equinox that you can see while I'm driving, I'm gonna close it out. I think I'm way more excited about this car than I was going into it. When they told me we were driving them, I kind of thought this would be, honestly, I thought this would be a throwaway, and I'm coming away with this feeling like value from Chevrolet is like peaking right now, and you can get a really good car for a reasonable price. You do not have to get these top trims. The second I can get my hands on a lower trim or the lowest trim, I really want to drive that 1LT, I will and report back. But look, you're getting a powerful enough 315 miles of range in a car that still feels like a car. It's not this like futuristic goofy thing that's trying to force you into something you don't want to be in. It has great tech, it has buttons, it has a nice leather steering wheel, you can option Super Cruise. It's a comfortable place to be, it's stylish, you won't be embarrassed to get in and out of it. And I think it's just a really livable vehicle that's comfortable and confident. So do not overlook the Equinox EV if you're in the EV market. It may not be where you ultimately end up, but it qualifies for that big old $7,500 tax credit. So it could be even more of a value play than you thought. So thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thanks to Chevrolet for taking us out here and throwing us in some cars in Michigan, and putting us in some new spots in Michigan that I've never driven. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.